All right, let's get started. Today we're going to start with a guest speaker, and then after he's done, I'll, among other things, be happy to answer questions about the assignment or whatever. We'll do that later. So a few times between now and the end of the semester, we're going to have guest speakers from industry, and I just asked them to talk about, you know, what their job is like, what technology they use on the job, how they got their job, who their favorite professor is, that sort of thing. This is Eric Olson. He graduated from here how long ago?
2014.
Okay, so 4 years ago. And he's been working at Adobe since, Adobe down in Lehigh. And so he's going to be our lead-off speaker and talk about working at Adobe.
Cool. Thanks, Joe. Favorite professor, for sure. I was his favorite student, right?
That's right.
That's only fair.
Except for these guys.
All right. So as Joe said, my name's Eric. I work at Adobe. It's my first job that I've had out of college. Other than my internship, it's the only other place I've done software work. This picture is my favorite way to work while I'm at work. So you can see I got my feet up on my ottoman and my computer in my lap, like a boss. I could turn around and sit at my actual desk with monitors, but that's kind of boring and it's not comfortable. Plus my friends sit right there and we spend half the day joking around anyway. So that's what we do. Currently right now I'm a senior software engineer. I'm on a team of 4 people. We have a team lead and the rest of us are senior engineers. The last one of my friends just got promoted to senior in January, so we're all doing that. But what do we work on there? Figure you might want to know. So I'm going to ask you guys, who's heard of Adobe Creative Cloud? Okay, that's pretty good. How many of you have heard of Adobe Experience Cloud? I saw one hand. Perfect. That's what I expected. But the truth of it is, I work on Experience Cloud, so it's cooler. So you guys should get familiar with it. So Creative Cloud is, the reason you guys know it, it's Photoshop and Illustrator and InDesign, those things, right? Those things that you guys can afford. Maybe not you guys because you're students, but someday the licenses for those are tens of dollars, hundreds of dollars a year. Experience Cloud is enterprise level stuff, and that's pretty much all we work on at the office in Lehigh is Experience Cloud. It's like Adobe Analytics, Media Optimizer, Target, things I never heard of before, so don't feel bad if you don't know what those are. But the licenses for those cost tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to have licenses for that, so that's why almost no one raised their hand. Specifically, what I work on with Adobe, so there's all these products under Experience Cloud. There's, like I said, analytics, things called Media Optimizer, doesn't matter what that means. There's about 8 offerings, and I don't work on any of those. My team is pretty, I would say my team is really fun because we don't really have a set place. We get to kind of float around and do whatever we want. We're called the Core Services team. So we get to build stuff that, that these different siloed solutions that are normally siloed, that these solutions would use to kind of relate to each other, to kind of give it the cloud feeling. Someone logs into analytics and they want more insight into another product. We help build those APIs between those. One of my favorite things that I built when I first got there was this permissions service. It was my first task, fresh out of college, build this thing, and I was scared. But then I remembered Joe being my favorite professor in my algorithms class, and highly optimized graph traversals and all sorts of cool graph algorithms. Took this problem of permissions in Experience Cloud because Analytics was managing their users and permissions, and Media Optimizer was managing their permissions, and it was being duplicated and repeated all over the place, and it was just kind of dumb. So the ask was, well, centralize it in one spot, so the data is only in one spot, and it has to be awesome. So I turned it into a graph problem, and it was screaming fast, and it was really fun, and everyone thought I was great, and I was pretty happy about that. Also built a push notifications service, so the little messages that bother you guys on your apps all day long. For like the NFL app was our first user of this, so I got to build the system that handled sending push notifications out to tens of millions of devices, which is really fun. And I forgot to say at the beginning, I tend to rattle, so throw your hand up and interrupt me please, because I need to be stopped sometimes. So if you have a question along the way, go ahead. Joe wanted me to talk a little bit about some of the technology, things that we use at Adobe. So the big ones, the main systems that you would think of, so I related to the brain, the heart, and the lungs. So we use Git repository. Is that what you guys are using in college these days? Okay, when I was going, we were using SDN. Is that still being used? Or?
Nope.
Yeah. No, yeah.
Not this one.
Okay, so you guys are using Git, so you know what that is. Awesome. So we use that exclusively at Adobe. And then we use task management software called Jira. Has anyone ever heard of that? A few hands. Any of you heard of Trello or any other task management boards? Sure. So Jira is just a really expensive, really fancy version of Trello in a way. It's what we live in every day as engineers. Like, what do I need to do today? I go to Jira and see what my tasks are. And then of course the IDE. I use IntelliJ. At Adobe you can pick whatever you want. Everybody gets a corporate credit card. So if you decide you want a different IDE, you just buy it and expense it, and then you're good to go. So they don't really care what your tools are that you use, as long as you're getting stuff done. But I'm really ingrained in IntelliJ these days. How many of you use IntelliJ? Eclipse? Anything else? What's the next big one that students use?
Well, they're using Visual Studio in here.
Oh, that's right. C#. I haven't got to play C# since college. Actually, it's not entirely true. I did dabble a little bit, and I miss it. I miss C#, Joe. So Java is nice. JavaScript is nice. C# has a lot of goodies baked in. Do you have a question?
Oh, I was going to say, I used NetBeans in high school.
Okay. Nice. Yeah, I did play with NetBeans a little bit while I was coming here, trying to find my IDE of choice. So there's that. More tools. And you guys, you might recognize some of these. You might not. Don't feel bad if you don't, because like Jenkins, if you don't know what Jenkins is, I didn't know what Jenkins was when I graduated. I knew a little bit of what NPM was. We use Postman to test our APIs. We use Slack for maybe half work, half just posting random junk to each other every day. So it's really fun. And Docker is the tool that we use for all of our deployments. All of our production code and most of our test code is deployed through Docker. I'd be really curious on this one. Who knows what Docker is? Cool. Okay, for the rest of you that didn't raise your hand, the people that raised their hand might make you feel bad. Just seeing hands go up. I remember sitting in your seats and the professor would ask questions and everyone would raise their hand but me. And I started feeling really bad. I'm like, crap, these guys are going to get the good jobs and I'm going to really suck, but it's the opposite. I'm just kidding. If you raise your hand, it's okay too. And then the ping pong paddle isn't a software tool. It's just to illustrate that I play ping pong every day at work. So it's a really important tool to me. It's dear to my heart. Any questions on tools? Yeah?
Do you play ping pong or table tennis?
That's a good tool question, thanks. I haven't subscribed to what I really want to call it. So if someone calls it table tennis, I don't get offended. But I call it ping pong. If they're two separate things, I don't know. So you can talk to me after and educate me. Shows how good I am, I guess. All right. So some tools, I don't have a slide for it, but I might as well mention or before I do that, yeah, question?
Is your Slack limited to just Lehigh? Is it like an across Adobe channel, or?
There are cross Adobe channels. The main ones that I live in every day are set up by the Lehigh team. It's very coupled in there. As far as my team communication, they have cross Adobe ones because I do a lot of interacting with people in India. Right now I'm talking to a lot of people in the France office for a project, so, but so to answer your question, both. I don't have a slide for the languages that we work in, but for the most part, if you guys care, I think you might. I don't use C#, like I mentioned before. I kind of wish I did sometimes. We do use a lot of Java, but since I've fallen in love with Node.js and JavaScript, whenever I go work in Java, it just kind of feels so prescribed to me. But I still do appreciate that at times. But mostly what my team does, since we're so floaty, we just kind of build all sorts of different things all the time. We do a lot of prototyping and have to build things really fast. And Node.js is a great language for prototyping and releasing small API-based applications. So the style of development that we use is called Agile. Are you talking to them about Agile?
Just a very little bit.
A little bit. You guys familiar at all with Agile? What that means? Words like epics and stories and sprints. Is that familiar? Or is it more what the crap, in a nice way to say it, is he talking about? More words I didn't know when I graduated, so don't worry about it. But in a nutshell, in order to work efficiently, we need to know what the heck we're doing every day. So epics are kind of like a category. Like, build this thing. And this thing has to have all these circles accomplished in order for that piece to get built. It's just a way to organize it, and there's no real, what's the word I'm fishing for? There's no right or wrong way to do it. Project managers at work do it all sorts of different ways. Yeah?
Do you have like a specific production team that sets up all of your organization? Or do you just have like the team leads work out like the tasks week by week?
Sure. That's a great question. So there's project managers, product managers, and engineers. So on the engineering level, a lot of these blue dots and blue triangles, the things that need to get built, I have a lot of input in meetings on what those pieces are. The green boxes are what the product managers come up with. They're the ones that interface with customers, decide what do we need to build. And they say, we need to build this green box. And how it gets built, the engineers fill it up with everything that goes on. They have input on what some of those subtasks might be, but we drive that quite a bit. Does that answer your question okay?
Yeah.
Cool. So remember there's these dots, triangles, and squares, because it will matter on the next slide. If I can get there. No? Okay. So now we have our dots, triangles, and squares kind of intermixed. So how I work, how everyone at Adobe works, is in these set time frames called sprints. And for those of you who know what that is, then you can fall asleep for 2 minutes. But a sprint is for us a 2-week period of time where we have a planning meeting and we say, okay, we have these 2 weeks ahead of us. What are we going to get done? And we sit in this meeting and we start picking out the blue circles, the blue triangles, these things that are prioritized, and we say, okay, we can get this done in these 2 weeks. And then it goes in there and we hit start on sprint and the 2-week timer goes. That's why I call it a sprint, because we start running. It feels like strolling, really. It's not that intense. And then And then at the end of the sprint, we've gotten all of our work done. Good job, us. And then we release our code, and customers can play with it. Good job, us. And then we have another planning meeting, and we get more circles and squares, and we set up for the next 2 weeks. The reality of what has happened in the last 3 months is we have a new deployment process. So instead of doing all this work and then releasing everything that we did at once, and then all this work every 2 weeks, we have a new deployment process where we're actually constantly just deploying stuff. Like I'll start a task at 10, I'll get it done at 10:30, and then it'll be running in production by 10:35. Because I can hit the little buttons along the way, and the builds, if we set it up right, just make it happen. So we can kind of pick and choose. Yeah, this had high priority, or other things are going to depend on it. That's just, why wait? In the cloud, there's really no reason to wait a lot of the time anyway. So yes.
So do you guys do like QA testing?
I wish.
Okay.
Repeat our question.
That was she was asking if we do QE testing, if we have quality engineers look at our work. The answer is we should. And we've been begging our manager for the last probably 6 months to hire someone to do that for us. I was going to bring that up later. All the other teams at Adobe have the development engineers and quality engineers, and their lives are just so nice because they just build something and then they forget about it until someone says something's broken. Where what I get to do, I get to discover my own bugs, but because I wrote it, I think it's bulletproof, so I don't discover it for a while. So it's a little more haphazard on my team, but in general, yeah, everything is QE tested. I don't know why my clickers are working. Okay, my favorite thing about Adobe, I'm going to have to say, is the low pressure. So Agile Development method is supposed to be, you get all the stuff done quickly, release it fast, everything's fast-paced. And I thought that would be really stressful. I honestly did. Because we're planning out our next 2 weeks, and you can't plan that perfectly every time. And there's a chance for a lot of pressure and stress and things that aren't fun at any job. But Adobe's so laid back. Really, when the 2 weeks are going, we might say, man, we really underestimated this. I want to get this other thing done that I've wanted to do, and so I'll throw something into the sprint because it's fun for me and get that done. Or at the end of that sprint there, it's like, crap, I didn't have enough time to get something done. And at the planning meeting, everybody sees that didn't get done and it was assigned to me, and there's a chance for stress and judgment. But there's none of that. Everyone's like, just put it on the next sprint. Who cares? And in a lot of ways, it just really doesn't matter. And there's it'll get there eventually. So my internship, I worked for a company that had a lot of clients. They built things for other customers. Adobe builds stuff for themselves. Basically, it's their own product. They own their own product. They're not building product for someone else. And there's a big difference. At my internship, it also wasn't that stressing. Software engineering is not that bad. But it was a little bit more judgmental mentality when things weren't getting done, when there's another paying customer saying, you promised us. We're at Adobe, and probably a lot of other companies, I'm sure, it's pretty low pressure. It's kind of nice. So there's that.
Eric, would you compare stress level in school on the job?
School sucks. It doesn't even compare. It's a different scale. I will say one more thing about, I was going to mention it later. I'll mention it now since it's brought up. So I did a lot of interviews when I was getting near graduation. I had several job offers. And I had it narrowed down to 2 between Adobe and another company. And I was really torn because I was like, Adobe is going to be, that's the thing I want on my resume. But I thought, but it's a big company, it's going to be stressful, I'm going to get burnt out. And I'm really passionate about my own side projects. And I didn't want to feel burnt out during the day because I wanted energy for my own side projects. So I was thinking, if I do Adobe, I'm going to have to sacrifice my own stuff. Ultimately, I decided to go for it, and it was completely opposite of what I thought. I have more energy after a day of work than, than I would have thought before. So I never felt that way with school at the end of the day. So yeah.
Were there any clues in interviews about like how stressful a company might be to work for?
Yeah.
Like red flags?
Sorry?
Like red flags, like, ooh, I don't want that.
I wish I would have kept count on how many interviews I did. I interviewed everywhere. I just wanted people to interview me. I wanted people to tell me how much money I was worth. I thought that was cool. And yeah, so I feel like I became so good at being interviewed that I started judging interviewers. And yeah, I could see the red flags. When I did my interview at Adobe with my manager, he wanted me to write something out on paper, and while I was doing that, he was just doing emails. Like, he didn't even pay attention to me. And I thought, that's interesting. Kind of stressed me out, but it was okay. And that's how he's been ever since I worked there. He just doesn't pay attention. It's kind of nice. Yeah.
Did you take the highest offer?
No. I made the highest offer, go even higher.
Made what?
I said I made the highest offer, go even higher. That's what you have to do when you're looking for a job. Adobe was tied with the highest offer, and then they went up. So I guess the answer would be yeah, I took the highest offer. But not because I love money, because I love what I do. It's actually true, yeah.
What interview tips do you have? Since you interviewed so much.
Sure, just do it lots and lots. That's really it. Interview with companies that you don't care about, that you don't see yourself working at, just so you can get used to being interviewed. Because the stress that comes from being interviewed, like my first few interviews, I feel like I just sucked. I really did. And I wanted to be interviewed at Google, which I ended up doing. They didn't take me, so whatever that tells you. But I decided, it's like you're dating people, right? You date a whole bunch of people so that when you find the right one, you don't mess it up. So, so think of interviews like that, just so that you're not stressed out. Because when you're your more natural self, you're more likable. I've interviewed probably 20 people since I've been at Adobe, and I can tell the people that haven't been interviewed compared to the ones that have. It really makes a big difference between who I can see myself working with. I do have a slide for it, but since you asked, another thing is if you're asked a question that you don't know, don't like fidget and try to figure it out on the spot. Just say you don't know. It's okay. Yeah, I've asked people questions in interviews, and they said, I don't know, and I thought, cool. And then I asked them another question, and they're able to answer that. So don't let your time be wasted on trying to guess, because then you just look dumb. All right. So what does my day look like every day as a software engineer? You guys are dying to know that, right? So my day looks like Git and Jira had a baby, and I get to watch that baby every day, the love child, because I live in both of these every day. So this is what happens when I'm going to complete a task. So I go to Jira, and I get a story. We can call it an issue or a bug or something. Mine is called ABC123, and has some description. Sweet, I can accomplish that. It's a piece of cake. So I write the code, as you guys are loving right now. Commit it to Git. Go back to Jira and say, I did this. Hit the resolve button. I love that button. And this is, to come back to you, this is what I wish I had. The QE team is supposed to validate and resolve issues, and does 1 + 1 actually equal 2? Does your code suck, or did it work? And if it turns out you did a good job, then good job. And if you did it really fast, and you're just really great in general, then great job. And honestly, dollar signs do happen with efficiency. So there's a lot more that goes on to my day. Usually I get there and I check emails, and then I talk to my friends for probably 20 minutes. And then I do some coding, and then I play ping pong, and then I code some more. And then the huge debate on if we're going to eat at the cafeteria at Adobe or venture out for lunch. Every day, that's a stressful topic. And then come back and do more work, more chit chat. People just float around and talk all day. It's really casual atmosphere. I love being interrupted during my day. It's pretty fun. As far as coding standards, have you guys heard of code linters? Linting code? Nobody? Awesome. Okay, Google it. Because we use that to kind of enforce what the code looks like. And it also enforces a lot of best practices within the code. So if I type something that doesn't fit the linter's standards and it underlines it in red, and I'm like, dang it. And then I can do it the right way. And it makes it really nice because my friend Nate can write something and then I can look at it later and it will look like I wrote it myself because our styles are kind of forced to look the same. It sounds painful, but it's actually really nice. It's so nice to look at uniformly formatted code. Right, Joe? You've been doing this a long time. Like, haphazard code just like hurts the eyes. So Google linters. Code reviewers, not so much on my team. Other teams, a lot more. QE again, I wish I had it. Testing is kind of a big deal. This is what saves our butts a lot of the time is we write something, then we write a test for it. And before our code can actually get to the production servers, the tests get automatically run. And if it fails, then it won't ever make it to the end user, to the customer. So we do a lot of testing. Help collaboration-y stuff. Sort of hit on it. Adobe's just really chill, non-judgmental. Nobody has ever made me feel like an idiot there, and I've tried not to make anyone feel like idiots there. We ask each other questions all day, and collaboration is absolutely huge. So asking for help and providing help is just part of the everyday thing. Okay, getting a job. Just kind of the slide for it, but you're too impatient to wait. My biggest point for getting a job, if you can't tell by what's highlighted, is do side projects. I'm convinced that this was my biggest advantage in getting a job. Whenever I was curious about how to do something, I would build a little side project and try to make a website out of it. For the most part, when I look back at what I built, it really sucked a lot, but I learned some cool stuff. And it gave me a chance with my manager at Adobe. He was supposed to hire me as a new college grad, which I was, but I convinced him because of my side projects and my passion that I would be more than that. And he believed that, whether he was wrong or right. He believed it, so I was able to be hired as an experienced engineer, not just a new college grad, which I thought was pretty cool. So being excited about programming, this is what I really look for when I'm interviewing people, and I can tell they're excited about it by if they have side projects. And also, one of the bigger points is conveying that you can learn anything instead of just but it's more important than just trying to show everything you know or saying you can learn anything. And the worst example of this, I interviewed a guy once, and I asked him a question about Node.js, and he answered it, and I asked him, well, did you consider this? And it was just like a reflexive question. I wasn't trying to be a jerk, it was just as in collaboration mode. I just thought it'd be fun to discuss. And he spent the next 2 minutes telling me why he knew more than I did, and why I was an idiot. And he turned out to be wrong in what he was saying, and it pissed me off. And he didn't get the job on our team, but he did find a way to get hired on another team, and every time I see him, I don't know how. Anyway, so be kind about what you know, but don't be a jerk. It should be a given, but apparently it's not. Internship is pretty critical. I don't know, unless you have other job experience. Make sure you do an internship. There's no way to make your resume look super pretty without one, maybe, and lots of interviews. That's probably my side projects and lots of interviews, for sure. Most important things. You guys sick of hearing me talk yet? Okay, yeah.
Do you have a suggestion for like how to come up with ideas for side projects that can be completed or aren't like too simple or too complex?
Nope. My suggestion is just do whatever your hobbies are. So my first side project that I'm still running today, that turned out to do pretty well, it's randomapps.com. So I got together with some friends of mine a few times a week in the evenings, and we'd go to the high school football field at night and just exercise together. And somehow I was responsible for determining what ab exercise routines we were going to do. And I got sick of trying to, in my mind, be creative and make things be diverse enough to be interesting. So I wrote a script, sort of, to randomize ab exercise routines for us. And then I turned it into a website, and then it turned out doing pretty well. Some other friends of mine were getting into Bitcoin mining a while back, and I told them I bet I could make more money by making a website to help Bitcoin miners than actually mining Bitcoin myself. So I made a little wager, and I set up this little website to help people estimate like how much computing power they needed to hit a certain dollar amount in Bitcoin. It turned out I was wrong. I should have invested in Bitcoin. But I still learned a lot. I decided to learn AngularJS through doing that. Upped my CSS skills doing that. Other side projects, I was interested in cryptography. So I did that and learned how to deploy things on AWS infrastructure. I just wanted to learn all the tools. And reading about it is boring, and I can't do that. So I just have to do something, whether it succeeds or not. It ups your personal stock to try anyway. And there's a chance you can make money, and it's nice. Yeah?
Do you have a personal website?
I do. It's ericolson.net. So if you guys want the slides, there's a link to the slides, and then you can link to my personal site here. Let's see if it... Wouldn't that be funny if it crashed while I'm showing you? Maybe it's
Just
not.
mercy the Wi-Fi.
I guess. So this site is a little bit outdated. I pretty much...
Oh.
Okay, it's not my fault. It shouldn't be broken. I looked at it yesterday. But I pretty much built it because I wanted, when I was doing my interviews, I wanted people to see what I might be worth to them. I wanted to showcase my work, and I wanted to feel valuable, and I wanted anyone that was hiring me to realize that I would be valuable, because I felt like I was going to do a pretty good job, and I wanted to get a good job because I felt like I would deserve it. So yeah, so make a personal website. It is helpful. Let me get back there. I've got all the time you guys want for questions, so don't hesitate. Yeah.
What would be some advice you would tell to a younger version of yourself, one who's still in college?
That was pretty great. I don't know what I could do better. I'm just kidding. Probably get more sleep. That's a good question. That's hard to know.
Is there any software you would have learned in college to help you in your job?
Now that I've had my job and know what I'm working in, then I could answer that question. But since every job is different and every company uses different technology stacks, other than Docker, no, don't even learn Docker. Don't. That's boring. I would get used to get an AWS account and play with Lambda functions on AWS. Just write little functions in the cloud that do things. Explore AWS infrastructure, because that's going to be in pretty much any job you ever do. It's a fun place to write your own little playgrounds and websites. But as far as code, Node.js is pretty prevalent at work. If you're going to do front end, I would spend my time focusing on React. Yeah, sorry, I don't have a good answer for it. You're about to raise your hand. No? Stretching? Yeah?
Did you use any interview prep materials, and if so, would you recommend like the ones that helped you the most?
I sort of did. I'm trying to think. The BigOCheatSheet.com. I looked at that. That didn't come in too handy. Sortingalgorithms.com I used, and then I ended up buying the website from the guy, which is pretty fun. Other than that, nothing official. No, just a few of the brush up on skills things. Yeah, in the back.
Do you do a lot of black box testing?
No, not too much. With my team, we have to build things like so fast, and my manager is so on the opinion that it doesn't matter what the quality is, which hurts me because I love things to be beautiful. There's other teams that do, but I haven't done much of it. Yeah.
Is there anything that you learned in your classes in school that really helped you in your career later on that you'd like to share?
Everything Joe taught me. So 2420 was like my light bulb moment. Like data structures and algorithms has been the most fundamental thing, and then the higher level algorithms was pretty great. Specifically, the other things, like everything is super helpful, but the building blocks of data structures, I would say, is the majority of what I depend on. Yeah.
How important is networking compared with like technical skills in the industry?
I don't know. I haven't had to network much yet.
How about the interview process?
Sorry?
How about the interview process? Because like in business, if you don't network, it's like you're never going to get an interview.
Yeah, networking is, so I'll take that back. Networking is huge. So I talked to Joe's class like 2 years ago, and there's a student in there that decided to reach out to me last year because he was going to be looking forward to graduation this spring. He started the conversation with me really early, and I got him a foot in the door over there. I think he's going to be interviewing there in the next week or two. So I've been networked. You guys are in a good career though where everybody's looking to hire people. So there's really no way you won't get a job if you just even put in a little bit of effort. If you want the best jobs, then networking certainly can't hurt. But you guys will get jobs, don't worry. Probably have just a couple more minutes. Yeah.
So you mentioned that 2420 was your light bulb moment. Could you say something about what sort of background you had coming in?
Very, very little, in a way. So when I built my Random Apps website, I hadn't gone to school yet. I was doing real estate at the time. I'm old, in case you guys can relate or notice. And I was just teaching myself programming a little bit on the side. And you'll have to look at my personal website and read about Random Apps, because you'll laugh at my description on how I actually did it the first go-around. But I remember in 1410 that I took from Joe, and he showed us how to index into an array. To me, I was like, what? That's amazing! And my first for loop that I wrote, unbelievable, because I hadn't done that in my own learnings. Somehow I didn't. So I kind of had like the taste for these little pieces, and then 2420 was all about performance, like speed and how these data structures, if you sort an array this way, it's really slow. If you sort it this way, then it's stupid fast. And that really spoke to me because I love performance. I love high-speed stuff. So I think I lost traction on your question. On my experience, kind of answered it, but the real light bulb to me was how the same solution could be come up with in different ways, and there's really dumb ways and there's really elegant ways, and that was my favorite part of 2420.
The point I wanted to make is that you weren't the student 1410 that already knows it all.
Oh, I knew nothing. Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I was the one feeling bad when the teacher would ask a question and 3 people raised their hands. And I felt like I was the only one that didn't raise my hand, even though most people didn't. Like, I really felt behind. And I was older than everybody. It really doesn't matter. Yeah, everybody's going to be on the same level in the end, as long as you're working hard. So don't get discouraged. Yeah, that.
So after being in the field for a while, what CS electives do you think help you the most? Or would you take?
I enjoyed, I'm going to put attention on Joe again. I like my web software architecture class. So my personal projects tend to be very web-based because it's an easy way to distribute to people. So I did appreciate that class. It gave me extra perspectives that I hadn't considered before. I would say take app development because that's such a huge part of this industry now. It's sort of hard to avoid in a lot of ways. It's been so long since I've been in school, it's kind of nice. I don't remember what I did here.
What about databases? Did you take that?
I took databases. I enjoyed databases. It was, I'm trying to think what I was doing at the same time. It was either 3500 or 3505. And I was putting so much focus and love into the software side. I hadn't fallen in love with databases yet. Super helpful class. It wasn't at the top of my favorite list because I was so into the programming algorithms side of things instead of storing things at the time. But yeah, definitely do databases. You can't avoid that in the industry. I'm trying to think what else I took. I took a lot of classes. I had graduated. All right, a couple more questions? Yeah.
Do you have any programming book recommendations?
I don't read programming books, sorry. At work, everybody has like shelves of programming manuals, and I have nothing. And sometimes I wonder if they're better than me, and most of the time I realize they're not. I'm just kidding. But no, I don't, sorry. Yeah?
How often do you find yourself Googling things that you don't know the syntax for other things for?
All the time. All the time. Yeah. Yeah, you guys are going to steal code from Stack Overflow in your careers so much. Yeah, Google all the time. There's no way to avoid it in the industry. So, yeah.
Are you at the point where you're actually posting to Stack Overflow answers?
I have been for a while.
Okay.
When I was doing my internship, they wanted us to try and answer Stack Overflow questions on our downtime.
Okay, cool.
So I did do that. I don't anymore because I guess I don't like contributing to the community or something. But yeah. Yeah.
When you go home for the day, do you leave your work behind?
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very stress-free. Sometimes if I'm excited, I'll think about it. I think in the almost 4 years I've worked there, I've worked 2 nights, maybe a weekend. Some other teams aren't so lucky. Some of them are, I don't know what's wrong with them. But yeah, my job's not stressful enough for me to think about it when I'm at home. Yeah.
On average, how many hours do you put in a week?
Of being there or actually working?
Mostly being there.
Both.
Yeah, so, yeah, around 40 hours. Give or take, usually take. Honestly, so the way Adobe works is there's no time off, there's no accounting for hours. And if you're getting your work done, then you can sort of do what you want. So I find myself with a good amount of free time, and I almost always do what's expected of me, and then quite a bit more. So the fact that I take more time than maybe other people is okay. Like nobody judges me for it, so it's kind of nice. Yeah.
When you encounter bugs or problems, what's your problem-solving process?
Problem solving, like how to approach it, or
Like just how you go about solving these problems, like your problems in code.
not in life.
I mean, that too.
It just depends what's going on. When I'm working in UI, there's so many problems that can arise with. I won't even start saying things. I don't want to scare you guys, but it just depends on the task at hand. Really, there's no prescribed way. If there's a bug, the first thing I do is I make a task in Jira for it, so that if I solve it in 2 minutes, then I get to check the box off the list too, which feels good and it looks nice. But how to approach it, a lot of times I collaborate with my friends, actually. A lot of problems that any of us come across, we created the problem, so to find a solution to it is difficult. So it gives a good excuse to talk to your friend and get their set of eyes on it. Yep.
How much time do you spend learning new things for your job?
Let's see, so a few months ago our manager wanted us to spend about half of our time learning about Spark and a few other things for a couple weeks. So that was the only time I actually was told take time to learn something. Most of the things that I learn are on my free time, just things that I'm curious about discovering, and then when we're making those tasks and new projects come up and I have input on it, then I've learned these cool new tools and I can say, okay, this tool is going to fit that nicely. So I haven't had too many things put on me that I haven't already known. Yeah.
What's been your favorite project with Adobe so far?
It's going to be a toss-up between those two that I had at the beginning. The permission service was really fun because it was really fast, and I got to use graph traversal problems to find out who has permissions to do what. And then the mobile push service was really fun because that was 100% mine. That was completely my project and nobody else contributed to it, so it was like my baby. The permission service is almost completely mine, but I had to give my baby away recently, so another team took over my push service. Made me really sad, but it's time for him to grow up. I feel like I'm taking too much of Joe's time.
That's good.
Okay, one more question.
So it seems like Adobe is fairly supportive of your side projects. Would you say that that's common in the industry, or are there places that have no moonlighting policy?
I would be surprised if anyone had no moonlighting policy because no one would want to work there. To me, anyway, myself included and a lot of my friends, everybody does their own side projects. So to be prohibited would really be a company shooting himself in the foot. I did have to sign something at one point with Adobe I should probably know about. I'm not supposed to use company resources to build my own projects and things like that, but my manager is happy about my side projects because I know some cool things.
I want to close with my question.
Sure, go for it.
So we're going to spend some time coming up talking about intellectual property. And what I'm wondering is, you can go out and get whatever software you need to do the job. Does anyone look over what you're committing the company to when you buy this stuff?
I don't know. There are legal teams that look over certain aspects, but we, in our projects, we are using third-party modules, and honestly, like those have so many different licenses attached, and I don't know who's looking at that. It's probably bad. That's a good question. I'll think about it.
Okay,
so next time you see me, I'll be in prison.
All right, so we'll take a break. Eric, I'll see if you can hang out during the break, and anyone wants to talk to you.
Sure.
Okay, let's start again. All right, so PS11 is out. I made it due Monday, I think. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Mainly, I have these 2 days, this weird half week at the end of the semester to use. So that'll be due Monday. The final assignment will come out. I'm going to put it out the usual time, so it'll be at the end of this week, and it will be due the last day of the semester, which is a Tuesday. So you'll have again a week and a half on that. Any questions or problems about PS11 or anything else? Yeah.
So the grading rubric, it says that, well, attached to the PS11 assignments, it says it is the rubric for PS12. Should we know that?
Yeah, I need to look at that. So I gave this assignment last semester as PS12. So I think I just need to change that, the name of the rubric.
Okay.
Assuming it's not completely the wrong rubric. So yeah, thanks for pointing that out. I'll check it out after class.
Okay. There are also it's grading on 16 test cases instead of 18. Should be.
Yeah, it should be 18.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry about that. I forget about the rubrics sometimes. Yeah.
Just a quick question for PS12.
Yeah.
Will it be based off PS10 by any chance?
PS12 will be based off PS10 and PS11. Or for that matter, you could use PS9. You just need, you'll need a working server, Boggle server. It doesn't matter if it's the PS9 version or the PS10 version. And you'll be replacing the part that you didn't write, which is the part that takes the requests and calls the right methods based on the URL and the JSON object. And you'll be replacing that part with your string sockets, basically. Yeah, easier than it sounds. Yeah.
On PS11, I can pass like the first 8 tests, and then having trouble with the more advanced like receiving calls. Do you have any tips for what kind of code that needs?
Well, I'll tell you, student, the problem, the mistake students tend to make is, so you got the string socket, and someone might ask you, might call the begin receive method. So what they're saying is, I'd like a string. And so as soon as a string arrives, a line, so as soon as a complete line of text ending with a new line arrives, you call the callback with it. Well, to do that, you've got to use the socket that you've got inside of you. So the string socket is wrapped around a regular socket. In those first few tests, everything is pretty short, there's not much data. And if some students get this idea that if they want to receive a string, they make one call to begin receive on the underlying socket, and whatever bytes they get will be the ones they need to turn into a complete line and call the callback. But that may not be the case. It may be you have to keep calling begin receive. You call begin receive, you get some bytes. You call begin receive again, you get some more bytes. You may have to do that a few times before you get enough bytes to make a line. And you can get away with not doing that on some of the simpler tests. I don't know if that's your problem, but that's just an example. You got to thoroughly understand how the underlying socket works. Like when you send on the underlying socket, you give it an array of bytes to send. That does not mean they'll all be sent. The result of the begin send is that a callback is made to you and it tells you how many bytes were sent, and you're going to have to try again to get them all out. So confusion about how the native sockets work, I think, is the big problem with passing on the test cases. Yeah?
Did you just keep on waiting for the rest of the bytes until you reach a new line terminator? Do you wait until you get that new line terminator before you use the callback?
Yeah, so if I'm a string socket and someone has called my begin receive method, they've said they want a string. And so I've got to start reading bytes and keep reading bytes. And I read bytes, convert them into characters. Receive more bytes, turn them into characters until I've got a complete line. Then I can call the callback and say, here's your line. I'm probably going to have some leftover characters. I've got to save them somewhere for, I can't throw them away because I may get another request. The other thing you realize is, you may spam me. I may be standing here doing nothing, and suddenly I get 10 begin receive calls. So I've got to remember all those callbacks and start receiving bytes And I get the first line, I call the first callback. Once I've accumulated another line, I call the second callback. And I keep doing that until there's no more callbacks to deal with. Then I can stop receiving bytes until there's a reason to receive bytes. But if you look at my simple chat server, that's what it does. You know, the complexity of the simple chat server is because it has to, when it's trying to send out stuff, it has to keep sending until it's all sent. It has to look at how many bytes were sent, and if they weren't all sent, try some more. Okay. Any other questions? Yeah?
Are we not deploying our bottle survey to a cloud like you're talking about?
Yes, that'll be the lab, and tomorrow in lab, in fact, you'll be deploying it to Azure. So the lab consists of instructions telling you how to do that. Okay. I expect there'll be more questions about this on Thursday, but I thought I'd answer what there were now. Yeah?
You're talking about like getting a bunch of requests at the same time and doing them in order. Should we use any sort of like list or data object to track the order they were received?
Absolutely. You're going to have to, if you get, 10 begin receives at the same, roughly the same instant, yeah, you'll have to have state internal to the string socket that keeps track of the callbacks to make, and that keeps track of the payloads that go with those callbacks, and that keeps track of the order in which they were received, so that you can call them back in the order in which they were made. Yeah?
You mentioned that's one of the issues I've been having. You mentioned storing the order that the begin send or begin receive occur. At first I thought that when you get a begin receive, you would tell the socket to begin receive, and when that's done, you would call the callback, and you would test for more bytes. You would test for the new lines, so we'll need more bytes, need to read or not. And the issue is that sometimes gets out of order, because what I'm thinking is that I have most of that pass between my method and helper methods by parameters, so that none of that is stored in instance variables when I can help it. And if it just happens for one to take longer, they'll be out of order because it's multi-threaded. And do you know how we might fix that?
Well, without going into too much detail about your particular strategy, you need, every time you get a request, now begin receive request, you need to put the payload into you need to have a queue. First come, first serve. So the begin receive request, they're the oldest, get serviced first. So you look at my chat server example, there are lots of instance variables in there. And you're going to need lots of instance variables in your string socket to keep track of, among other things, callbacks to make that need to be made as soon as strings arrive, and the payloads that have to be passed to them. In addition to the socket itself is an instance variable. If you try to do this without looking at my simple chat server, I think you'll have a hard time. I mean, it's not exactly what you need, but it's a good starting point, because you'll be solving a lot of the same issues that it solves. So, understanding how sockets work, understanding how my simple chat server works, understanding what the string socket is, how that's supposed to behave, those are all really crucial. So, time spent in advance understanding all that would be definitely repaid. Yeah?
The documentation says that if the string becomes unable to send because the object was disposed, it'll call back with false.
Right.
Now, do any of your tests do that? Do any of your tests just...
I don't think that's tested. No.
Okay. Any advice about how to go about that? Because I have an idea of what might work, but I haven't been able to test it yet.
Well, right. So you see in my string socket that if you go and request bytes and it returns no bytes, it reads no bytes, it tells you 0 bytes were read, that means that the remote socket is quit sending. It's closed. So at that point, if you have any pending callbacks to make, you can call them back, and I guess it's the other way around. This is for send. So you would call back all the send callbacks. If you notice the remote socket is closed, you call all the send callbacks with Okay? So this is not something you want to put off till Monday. And if I can envision, I know the questions I'm going to get on the forum, and one of them is going to be, I can pass the test pretty much all the time if I run them individually. I can't pass them all if I run them at the same, if I run the whole batch at the same time in Visual Studio. And that's just running them all back to back to back to back just means that it's more stressful to your code than running them individually. And this is, a lot of your bugs are going to come down to threading errors. That as long as only one thing's happening at a time, everything works. But when there's millions of bytes flying on the sockets and lots of calls being made and serviced, all on different threads, then if there's any weakness, any small little problem in the way you're doing synchronization, the whole thing can collapse. That's what will expose the bug. And it's not, it can be hard to debug. So that's why we did a lab last week about how to, techniques for debugging multi-threaded code, and how to keep this thing in mind. So just take your time and, in debugging for this thing, you may have to sit and just think about what could go wrong in terms of threading as opposed to trying to. So you might not be able to reproduce the bug. That's just the way multi-threading is. Yeah?
You mentioned that your code shows how to write commands with 0 bytes have been read. The thing I was wondering about is that you will read several bytes until you reach to the point where you will read a certain number of bytes, and then you'll read or send a certain number of bytes and eventually stop. You wouldn't want to close the socket after that.
No. You never close the socket unless someone calls close. Right? When you've read enough bytes or sent enough bytes to service all your callbacks, you don't need to keep sending and receiving bytes, but you need to stay alive so that if someone now calls begin, receive again, you pick right up where you left off. Same thing with sending. Okay, so I'm not going to start a new topic. 9 minutes to go. So we'll end it here and do something new on Thursday.